They are the biggest surprise in Hamden. They had a pair of home games this weekend to improve on its 5-0 MAC start. Could the women's volleyball team inch closer to a perfect start halfway through their conference slate?
And the field hockey team traveled down to Philadelphia to face the Villanova Wildcats in their third Big East game. Could they pick up their second win and stay above 500 in conference play?
And hockey season is right around the corner. It's the women's and men's team. We'll have highlights from both.
As always, we'll show you the top 5 plays of the week. Sports Paws starts right now.
Welcome to Sports Paws. I'm Maury Hirsch-Gordon alongside Phil Acree.
Glad to be making my Sports Paws debut, Maury. Let's get right to it.
Right to the action, that is. Let's hit the volleyball court for some highlights. Quinnipiac and Canisius. Quinnipiac undefeated in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, 5-0. Trying to build on that one and make it 6-0 in the first set. Elizabeth Kloos finds the bottom of the ground. Quinnipiac wins that one, going up 1-0. Now in the second set, Canisius tries to tip it over Quinnipiac, a great play, and Canisius unable to block the ball over the net. Quinnipiac would take an early lead. Now Jen Coffey with the kill. Quinnipiac up 2-0 now, looking to bring out the brooms, go to 6-0. This team is absolutely rolling. A great block up front by Allison Lee and Kat Miller. Quinnipiac would go on to win 3-0.
And thank you, Maury. It's been quite the season for the volleyball team. After defeating Canisius, the volleyball team looked to keep their impressive win streak alive. The Bobcats came out firing on all cylinders, with Maria Pensari leading the way for Quinnipiac, and they won the first set 25-15. However, Niagara was able to win a close second set by a score of 26-24. Quinnipiac was able to fight back, winning the third set by the same score, 26-24, but the Purple Eagles were able to snap the Bobcats' win streak as they dominated in the fourth and fifth sets. But despite the loss, Jen Coffey and Allison Lay were standout players for the Bobcats.
And now to talk all things Quinnipiac, we bring in Nick Colon, who's here live with us. Nick, you've been around this campus for quite some time. Thanks for coming on. It's been quite the hot start for this volleyball team. Chris Saplinski's got to be happy. So what sets this team, in your estimation, apart from the teams in the past?
Maury, you're exactly right. It's kind of been that Cinderella Leicester City 5,000-1 campaign kind of turnaround for this Bobcats team, because coming into the season, they were picked 9th in the preseason poll, which is second to last. Right now, they're actually second from the top behind Fairfield. And actually, under Coach Saplinski, the team was 10-95 overall and 4-50 since joining the MAC. Right now, they already have more wins than they had the past 3 seasons with 14. And actually, it's a Division I record for the program. And dare I say this team actually has depth. Nobody's really talking about the star player from last year who's been injured in Katie Uricki, who actually led the team in kills. People have stepped up in her place, like Elizabeth Kloos and Jen Coffey, to kind of fix that void that she left out, and the Bobcats are still producing great results.
Now, Nick, can we now fairly criticize head coach Chris Saplinski with the talented squad that he has available to him?
You know, personally, I've been very critical of Coach Saplinski myself, and it's tough because when you have 10 wins in the last 3 seasons, it's kind of warranted. You know, you kind of understand that criticism is going to come your way, but it's kind of different this year because last season, Saplinski only had 1 senior on his squad. This year, he actually has 7 seniors. So that experience is definitely there, both on and off the field. And this is actually the first time that he's actually cycling a recruiting class through their eligibility in college. Kind of get to 4 years. If you have players that, you know, aren't really used to your system or don't really fit your game plan and you're kind of forced to use them, they're not really going to mesh. Now he has everybody that he's wanted, everybody that he's recruited, so now they should really mesh and fit his game plan, and I think that's exactly the reason why the Bobcats have been able to turn around. And, you know, it's kind of the Bobcats came into the season with almost a new facility as well. The floors were redone, the lights were redone. It's not so physically and emotionally gloomy in that arena, in that center, should I say. And the Bobcats just have high spirits right now. They're really energized, and it's either they're blowing teams out or they're kind of re-energizing themselves and coming back. So they look sharp right now, and yes, it's fair to criticize him now.
Nick, a very big test coming up this weekend, again at home against Marist Fairfield, 2 of the premier teams in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. Do you see this team, Nick, winning this weekend's games, and then eventually are they a MAC title contender?
Well, this weekend's going to be a great test for them. You know, right now in the MAC, they're second. They're 14-6, and they're 6-1 in the MAC, right behind Fairfield. They came into this weekend facing Niagara on a 7-game winning streak. And had they beaten Niagara, they would still be on top of the table, right next to Fairfield. And like you mentioned, coming into this weekend, it's going to be a great test. The top 6 teams make that postseason playoff push, and right now the Bobcats are second. This is going to be a great test against Fairfield to see how they measure up against a good team that they may meet in a title game should they get there. And I think the Bobcats are pretty secure in their efforts making the tournament. We want to see if they can actually host the tournament and how long they can actually compete going into the tournament. It's going to be a great test to see, especially this weekend against Fairfield.
From 1-2 conference wins a year to now 6, and maybe even a potential championship. Nick Colon, thanks for joining us.
Thanks.
And 2 years ago, the field hockey team, a member of the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, went to Pennsylvania and beat Villanova Phil 4-2. That was when Quinnipiac was a member of the MAC. Now they played each other for the first time as members of the Big East. QU traveled back to the Keystone State looking for the same result, and again, it would come through this time, though, with a 5-2 win behind 4 second-half goals. Quinnipiac featured 4 different goal scorers on the day, and they won their second conference game. And now Quinnipiac sits at 2-1 and is at a 4-team tie for second place, along with Providence, Old Dominion, and Liberty. UConn, as we know, they're dominant in all sports, Phil. They sit atop the standings at 3-0. The Bobcats host the Friars of Providence Saturday in their next game.
Thank you, Moore, for that. Speaking of the volleyball, not the volleyball team, the field hockey team, we take you to the Hofstra highlights when they took on Hofstra. Anyways, here in the beginning of the first half, who else but Savannah Riley? She's the one that's going to get QU on the board 1-0. She's the biggest player that they got, biggest scorer, obviously. Now, 12 minutes left in the first half. Hofstra comes right back and ties at 1-1. QU isn't looking too good defensively. But now Hofstra chooses number 13, Larry Biddle, to take the shot after a penalty stroke, unable to capitalize. QU's defense looking good right there. Anyways, later in the first half, number 7, Dana Barlow, takes the shot and she makes it, Hofstra's up 2-1 at the half. Now a goal to put them back on top, and for the win, Hofstra ends up winning 3-0 with this shot. The shot goes in, and Hofstra takes the 3-2 lead and ultimately the victory over Quinnipiac.
Phil, a tough loss for the Bobcats against Hofstra, but really when you look at it, that's not a loss in the Big East Conference. Their transition to the Big East Conference was taken a closer eye by a Quinnipiac reporter, Kyle Lavasser, and here's what he had.
The Quinnipiac field hockey team has had to adjust to its new conference, the Big East. After starting Big East play 2-1, Quinnipiac is tied with Providence, Old Dominion, and Liberty for second in the conference. However, Quinnipiac's 2 conference wins have come against the 2 bottom teams in the Big East, Georgetown and Villanova, both of which are 0-3. Head coach Becca Main feels the mental game of playing in the Big East has been the biggest adjustment yet.
This is a new type of schedule for us. The Big East plays 1 game every week, 9 weeks in a row. We're not used to that. We're used to having like a big MAC schedule for 3 weeks and all you do is play MAC. So it is hard to go back and forth mentally. But I did think the bodies were prepared, the bodies look good, and the fitness looked good. For us, that finish and that urgency needs to be earlier than the second half.
4. The number of Big East teams that make the playoffs and the number of Big East games left in Quinnipiac's schedule. With Providence and Old Dominion also tied for second in the conference, its next 2 games will be key to its playoff chances. Maine says the team's preparation is vital.
We say there's nothing better than game day except a Big East game day. So I think that's hard. I think today, we always play the Big East game the first game of the weekend, and then you play another opponent the second game. So it's something that we have to get used to. That's something we're going to be doing for the years to come, and I do think that has to change, and that preparation has to change. And whether that means what we do in between the 2 games, what type of rest and relaxation, what type of food, I think that is something we have to find, and we have to find it by next weekend. I mean, next weekend's a huge weekend for us.
Despite dropping to 2-9 overall in the season due to a 3-2 loss against Hofstra, Quinnipiac remains 2-1 in the Big East. Their next conference match comes next Saturday against Providence College here at Johnson Field. For Q30 Sports, this is Kyle Lavasser signing off.
You love that smile from the kid, Kyle Lavasser. Kyle, great job on that. Now let's transition over to the women's rugby team. Phil, a team that has beaten opponents by an average of over 35 points per game. They're outscoring their opponents overall this year, 143 to just 27. Our own Emma Carmen is live upstairs in the piazza with head coach Becky Carlson. Emma?
Thank you guys so much for having me. My name is Emma Carmen, and tonight I have the pleasure of speaking with Becky Carlson, who is the head coach of the women's rugby team. Becky, dating back to last season, your team has won 10 matches in a row, and you guys are 4-0 so far this season. How do you think the stretch of dominance has impacted your team's preseason heading into matches coming up?
Wow, it's a It's a big one, isn't it? It's a good first question for your first interview, right?
Yeah.
I'm stoked to be with you tonight. So,
Thank you.
I think we don't prepare for any season any different than we typically do. I think preseason just boils down to going after another national championship and not necessarily focusing on the one before. We don't ever really talk about the streak. I think that's something that's come out more in the media, and I don't think they're feeling any extra pressure from that. But it's always good to have that on your side.
Agreed. The freshman impact has made a noticeable difference this season. How do you believe that it's going to influence the team later on this year?
Our group of freshmen that we've recruited are more of our steady group.
Yeah.
You're not going to find anybody, and you have class with one of them,
Yes.
right? So you're not really going to find anybody who's going to be overly extroverted, but they are hard workers and they're very detail oriented. So we're really stoked to see, especially freshmen like Mika Maples, what they can bring. She's just really busted out of the gate and put
Yeah.
some points on the board for us.
What do you think that Mika is going to have for the next coming years?
I feel, Mika was never a rugby player in high school. That's what's interesting about it. She was a basketball player, and her team went to the championship 4 years in a row to states. And she's been phenomenally successful as a triple sport athlete. And I knew when I was recruiting her that she was going to be able to bring something to Quinnipiac. And I think just her overall athleticism,
Yeah.
her willingness to learn a new sport. I mean, she's just made an impact. It's a huge impact for us in the first year.
That's unbelievable. Who do you think that the biggest opponent this season is going to be?
Definitely Central Washington. We've played Central Washington twice. We have not been successful against them.
Yes.
But we have them in the next 2 weeks, and they're actually the rankings just came out, and their show against Army put them ranked above us. So now we're third. So it's going to be a good showdown.
Yeah. How are you going to prepare for that team specifically?
They're heavy in the offload. They're they're good at their ball movement in the middle of the field, and certainly we have fast backs. So I think that it's going to be a big test for our forwards to really kind of defend that offload and really be a force in the middle of the field.
Yeah. What do you think that Maggie Miles and Alona Marr are going to have towards that game specifically?
The same thing that they always have. They bring a lot of intensity. They bring a lot of energy. I think, for one thing, both of them are hard hitters, and both of them are pretty precise with the ball, and they know their routes, and our lines that we're running have been better than they've ever been since I've been at Quinnipiac.
That's amazing. So for your first 4 games against Army, American, Norwich, and Notre Dame, what do you see? Do you see a trend with anything with those teams?
I think that definitely with those teams, I think that we've come out, and again, these are the best lines and angles that we probably ever run. So I think that made a huge difference in our success in the first 4 games.
Okay, thank you so much for coming out tonight. Now it's back to you at the desk.
Thank you.
The women's ice hockey team scored 4 first period goals but ended up surviving Maine's comeback. How? We'll show you the highlights when we come back.
And the team you've all been waiting for, it's the men's ice hockey team. They debuted at home too. Hockey expert Kirby Paulson will stop by to break down both teams. Don't go anywhere.
Good evening and welcome to Sports Paws.
In the end, we're here to win the championship this year.
Jess Fontaine now has that. She's going to take a ripper off the post, but she's going to come back.
And my number 1, hold your applause, Bobcats fans, is Quinnipiac.
All right, Victoria, you know what time it is. It's top 5 plays of the week.
My favorite time.
Next big purchase.
I could really go for a Ray and Mike sub right now.
Come to Ray and Mike's and try our Philly chicken and cheese for just over $4. Giant cheesesteak subs and mouth-watering boar's head sandwiches for as low as $4.75. Q-Cash accepted just a mile down the road on Whitney, here at Ray and Mike's.
Welcome back to Sports Paws. Let's not waste any time, Maury. Women's ice hockey hosted Maine for a 2-game series. Let's see the highlights. You see first game right here in Hamden for the Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team. Things got started off when the leading scorer from last year's team, Titi Cianferrano, scored her second goal of the game with the assist by Kenzie Prater on this one. She's a freshman. She's going to be big this year. And now, third period, you see UMaine is going to get a little bit of offense going with number 20, Morgan Sekundiak. That's her first of the game. Not going to be her last. They start chipping away. Comeback starts. It's 5-3 now, QU. Now later in the third period with 11 minutes, Sekundiak again scores, making it 5-4 Quinnipiac, and the lead is now only just 1. Will Quinnipiac be able to hold it? Now third period, less than a minute regulation, shot gets off, but it's saved by Sydney Rossman, the reigning ECAC goaltender of the year. Quinnipiac ends up winning 5-4. And Cass Turner and Melissa Samoskevich will post-game for the interviews.
A slow start in game one. The fourth team in the country, though, Phil, I think they're coming out with something to prove. In the first period, New Jersey's on the home ice. Who is it other than number 11, Melissa Samoskevich, fires one in on net. Unfortunately, that one wouldn't go past the main goaltender. Later on in the first period, though, Sydney Rossman, a save of her own, one of the 17 on the day. Now, we move into the second period, all tied at 0. Mackenzie Lancaster, great pass to TT Cianfrano for the goal. Cassandra Turner said big things are going to come from 1-3 this year. That's Lancaster. Now, to make it 3-0, it's Samoskevich, the great product out of Sandy Hook, Connecticut. Quinnipiac would go up 3-0. Into the third period now. Prater with a little dish to Marcone, who shoots, and unfortunately the UMaine goalie there to block the Bobcat shot. Quinnipiac, though, would go on to win 3-0 after Rossman puts in another save, a shutout for her, way to get her back on track for the senior.
Thank you, Maury. Now let's transition over to the men's team. They face McGill University from Canada on Saturday night. Let's roll the highlight. Highly anticipated game for the Bobcats as they come off a fantastic season last year. Things got started in the first period when Tommy Shutt wins the faceoff and passes it over to KJ Tiefenworth, who sneaks a short side shot into the net, first goal. He needs to be big this year for the Bobcats. You can see here things are going to get a little chippy, and it wouldn't end there in the first. Later on in the second, McGill drives up and they get their only goal of the game, and now the game is tied 1-1. Later on in the second period, you see things are again getting chippy with the teams. Tim Clifton, Bo Peever up there. Things wouldn't end there. Third period now, Kevin Duane flips the puck to number 16, Landon Smith for the goal. Quinnipiac up 2-1. Now later on in the third, last-ditch effort by McGill to try and score, but they wouldn't fare well. Quinnipiac wins 2-1. Over the weekend, there was some shifting in the UCHO.com poll. Wisconsin and Minnesota remained atop the poll at 1 and 2. Third-ranked Boston College lost and tied to Minnesota Duluth. The Eagles then dropped from 3rd to 5th, while Quinnipiac, 4th, and Clarkson 5th, both moved up one spot. After not being ranked, Minnesota Duluth found itself ranked 6th in the new poll. North Dakota, Colgate, Boston University, and Princeton rounded out the top 10.
And a young star now joins us. Kirby Paulson is live to talk some hockey. Kirby, thanks for hopping on.
Fix the camera.
Kirby, thanks for hopping on.
How's it going, guys?
Kirby, a top 15 matchup at the TD Bank Sports Center. Northeastern against Quinnipiac. What will Rand Pecknold's team need to do to take down the Hockey East foe?
Well, Maury, I'll tell you, I mean, last season, Northeastern started out 1-11-2, and then they went on a 13-0-1 run. They went on an unbeaten streak and ended up winning Hockey East. This is a team that's going to go in and grind. They're going to play into the final buzzer. They have the tools to do so. They have guys like Ryan Shea, a freshman, and he's going to be playing up at the top line for the defense, and also Ryan Ruck, the goalie, not to mention the Stephen brothers, who were offensive catalysts last season. I don't see a way where they're not really going to give a run, Quinnipiac a run for their money. Quinnipiac's going to have to open up their passing opportunities and take shots from outside the slot and get a little creative and getting pucks to the net.
Now, Kirby, after losing so much senior leadership last season and just plain talent, how do you think this team is going to perform this season?
Well, I think it's always tough to lose that senior leadership that you get so used to over the years, especially the Nicole line, which was such an offensive catalyst. But again, I think they have the pieces, kind of like Northeastern has the pieces to go up against the men's team. The women's team is going to have the challenge of a brand new defensive core. At the same time, the younger players are going to be able to step up. You have people like Abby Cleary, the forward, the Shattuck St. Mary's alumni, and also Katie Tabin, who was extremely talented in the exhibition game. I was very, very impressed, especially against the weekend against Maine. She has a great stick and very fluid skater who's going to make a difference. So this young core, but don't forget, they also have Sydney Rossman, who's been very consistent in goal, especially last season, putting up an incredible historic season. And then obviously Melissa Samoskevich and TT Cianfrano as well.
Kirby, thanks for joining us. And now to the pitch, some big-time games for Dave Clark's women's soccer squad, and the men look to pick up their first conference win.
And we'll check in on the cross-country team and how they fared in Pennsylvania, and we'll finish up by showing you the top 5 plays of the week. Don't go anywhere. Sports Paws will be right back.
Good evening and welcome to Sports Paws.
In the end, we're here to win the championship this year.
Jess Fontaine now has that. She's going to take a ripper off the post, but she's going to come back.
And my number 1, hold your applause, Bobcats fans, is Quinnipiac.
All right, Victoria, you know what time it is. It's top 5 plays of the week.
My favorite time. I could really go for a Ray and Mike sub right now.
Come to Ray and Mike's and try our Philly chicken and cheese for just over $4. Giant cheesesteak subs and mouth-watering boar's head sandwiches for as low as $4.75. Q-Cash accepted just a mile down the road on Whitney, here at Ray and Mike's.
And now, at home, in hand, in the Quinnipiac women's soccer team, Phil, 0-2 in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, but they had 2 big matches here at home. The first one was against Fairfield. Who else but an interstate rival? Both teams 0-2, needing a win to get back to the middle of the conference right here. Olivia Majewski, great punch by the freshman goalkeeper, would keep it 0-0 early on. Then, in the first half, Quinnipiac making chances of their own inside the box. Jess Fontaine draws a penalty shot. Her classman, Kelly Caruso, would find the back of the net. Quinnipiac would go up 1-0. Good start for the Bobcats. Now a little later, Jess Fontaine would play the ball to Jess Gargan. Allie Grunstein, one-time goal. Quinnipiac up 2-0. A great start, but Phil, we all know what the scariest score in soccer is. It's 2-0. Why? Because if one side scores a goal, it's 2-1. If the other side scores a goal, the game is over. Fairfield had other plans, though. Mel Heinger would put the ball past the Quinnipiac goalkeeper. Fairfield inching a little closer. It's now 2-1 Bobcats. With 5 minutes left in the game, Fairfield to force overtime. Who else in the middle of the box? Mel Heinger, her header, just goes wide. And Quinnipiac would go on to defeat Fairfield, earning its first MAC win, 2-1.
Thank you, Maury. And now we take you again to women's soccer, another division rival, big game against the Marist Red Foxes. First half, QU immediately establishes the stout defense that would be prominent throughout the game with the slide block right there, game still 0-0. Then another save by the Marist goalie, number 22, another missed opportunity. Here we see another save by Marist, another missed chance. You see Quinnipiac driving up the field now, and now they're able to finally score. Quinnipiac takes the lead 1-0. Now a little bit later in the second half of the game, a one-on-one race now between Marist and another stout defensive play. Now you see Marist driving up the field one-on-one, Quinnipiac rushing up to save it, and they actually get the block in there again. And now Quinnipiac looks to go in, and now they miss point-blank range. Another missed chance by Quinnipiac. And now they finally capitalize on this goal right here by number 14, Jess Fontaine. Another great game by Quinnipiac, and they win 3-0.
And while the women were at home on Saturday, the men's team was in Poughkeepsie, New York to face the Marist men's team. For the fourth straight year, as the member of the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference, Eric DaCosta's squad stayed undefeated against the Red Foxes, but it didn't come easy. The Bobcats entered intermission facing a 2-0 deficit. And to be quite honest, this team could have just rolled over and given up, especially after the devastating loss to Niagara to open up the conference. But a little mixture of youth and experience paid off big time. Freshman Connor McCoy cut the lead in half, and senior Ryan Scheiderman tied things up in the 84th minute. Let's fast forward into overtime, where it's freshman Eamon Whalen who scored the game winner. And at 1-1 now, the men's soccer team will host winless Manhattan on Wednesday at home at 4 p.m.
The men's cross-country team made history this weekend, Maury. They had two runners finish under 25 minutes in the 8K race at the Paul Short Invitational. Brendan Copley and Dylan Fearon both finished 1 and 2 respectively for the Bobcats. And for the women's cross-country team, they also participated in the Invitational. They finished 25th out of 45 teams in the gold race, and juniors Kaylee Roberts and Emily Wolf led the way for the Bobcats.
And the softball team continued its fall season dominance as well. They had a doubleheader against in-state rival Hartford. Phil, you ask any coach when you're in the off-season, the results are secondary, and the minor improvements that will pay off come the spring are the most important. But that didn't matter because the Bobcats swept the Hawks. An offensive outburst for Quinnipiac saw 17 runs cross the plate. An 8-3 win in Game 1 and a 9-1 win in Game 2 improves the Bobcats' fall record to 3-1.
And now we have the top 5 plays of the week for you right here.
And the top 5 plays of the week sponsored by B&D Deli Works, open for breakfast and lunch. Try the Quinnipiac Panini or the Q Dog Sub. At number 5, we're going to head to the women's soccer field. A long shot comes in off the crossbar. Bang! Senior Jess Fontaine puts the goal in. Quinnipiac 3.
And number 4 for you, we have another women's soccer highlight. Coming up now, we see where QU won this game 2-1. Right here in the first half, you see that there was a Fairfield long shot by Anna Berea, and it's punched out by QU goalie Olivia Mazruski.
At number 3, Kevin Duane, the transfer from BU. A nice pass to Landon Smith puts it up 2-1, Bobcats.
Number 2, women's soccer right here, as the final was 2-1, a little celebration. The highlight though, QU cross from Jess Gargan, chipped over goalie by QU's Allie Grunstein.
And the top play of the week comes from women's hockey. What a snipe. Upper 90, Melissa Samaskevich. Absolutely big things for the sophomore this season.
Well, that's all the time we have here tonight. Thanks for joining us for another episode of Sports Paws. Until next Monday when we see you again, there's 7 home Quinnipiac games this week.
And all of the coverage that you can see will be on Quinnipiac, Q30television.com, as well as on social media at Q30 Sports. For our entire crew, talented analysts, and my partner, Phil Akery, I'm Maury Hirsch-Gordon. We'll see you next time.